First and foremost, I want to thank you so much for stopping by on the platform to talk about some of the amazing work that you have done. This is really an honor. I appreciate you taking out the time.
Absolutely. And the honor, I'm sure, is mine. So, where did you say you are?
Okay, I'm currently in Madagascar, so I'll give you a heads up. It's not as technologically advanced out here, so if we get disconnected or if it's a break, you can continue to speak and then I'll edit it once it's finished.
Okay, understood. I'm impressed with how much you travel.
Oh, wow. Do you travel?
I do. I haven't recently, or actually, I did. I grew up as a military brat, so it's sort of in my blood, you know,
Okay.
travel all the time. I've been to at least every continental United States state at least one time. I've been to Hawaii. I've never been to Alaska. I have been to Europe. I've been to South America. I've been to most of the Caribbean nations. My father's from Jamaica, so I've been there a few times.
Wow, that's really cool. You said you haven't been to Africa.
I have not yet.
Oh,
It's on my bucket list, we'll say. I have at least one aunt that lives in Ghana, an aunt I have not yet met. So hopefully I can travel there and see her someday.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ghana is amazing. I lived out there almost a year. It's a very beautiful place. There's a lot of Jamaicans and African Americans that have repatriated out there. It's very peaceful. Madagascar as well. They some of the more peaceful African countries. Very welcoming people. Very hospitable.
Wonderful. I don't doubt it. I have a few friends from various African nations. Usually they're from Nigeria. I have one from Sierra Leone, um, but not very many people who actually come and stay in the United States that I know of.
Okay, okay. Now, for the viewers who may not recognize you, let them know who you are, where you from, and definitely what do you do.
Okay, well, I'm currently in the city of Miami, Florida. I teach here at the University of Miami's Law School. So I'm a full professor of law here. Um, I guess I didn't say my name is Zanita Fenton. I teach constitutional law, torts, family law, products liability, and I teach a variety of courses, or at least I have in the past, related to race or gender or both, or those and other what I'll call subordinated categories.
Wow, okay, that really sounds amazing. I would like to ask you this. When did you develop this passion for law? Is this something that you always wanted to do since childhood, or did you kind of get into it later in life?
Well, that's a funny story. I was interested in it since childhood, but frankly, and my mother would tell people forever when I was 7, my daughter's going to be a lawyer because I said once I wanted to be a lawyer. She forgets I also said I wanted to be a fireman, a policeman, a ballerina, and a variety of other things. But she kept repeating that I wanted to be a lawyer. So when I was an undergraduate, I was still on that pathway, but I stopped. I said, let me figure out if this is the right pathway for me. And so I did. I spoke to a number of people. I read a whole bunch of books and actually discovered that lawyering is the way that I think. It's become who I am. And so I think it's the right pathway for me. But I didn't just jump into it. And I say that for any aspiring lawyers to hear clearly, because it's not for everybody. There's lots of smart people out there. You don't have to be smart at being a lawyer because if you're unhappy with what you're doing, then it's not worth it. I love what I'm doing. And if you want to be a lawyer and you love it, I support that 100%. But I thought about it before I jumped into it. I don't remember your
Wow.
other question.
I mean, that definitely sounds like a career that if you would have to be passionate about. You're dealing with people and dealing with the law and their lives, but you was able to make history in doing that. So if you could talk about that a little bit, becoming a
Well,
uh
a law professor. Yes, I don't want to overstay. So I did. practiced law briefly before I became a law professor. So I worked at a Wall Street firm of Cleary, Gottlieb, Steen, and Hamilton. I know they're very proud of their lawyers and their alumni, so shout out to them. It wasn't long after, and I also clerked for a judge before I became a law professor at Wayne State University's law school in Detroit, Michigan. And at that time, and in that moment in history, as you put it, uh, I was their first female of African American descent to gain tenure. So I think that's a big deal. I think they thought it was a big deal because I know they recruited me specifically for that purpose. And so did another university after I got tenure. Miami's law school also recruited me with that on their horizon, that they had not yet tenured a female of African American descent to teach at their law school. And so I became a first twice over. It has its challenges to do that. I don't want to crow it too loud in certain ways because I don't think there's anything special about me per se. There's something special about those moments in history, that it was time. And for still too many universities, it's still time. That numbers of women, of people of color in the academy, in law schools, and other departments is still far too low. That equality might mean opportunity, but it's not necessarily opportunity that is given to everybody or is taken advantage of by everybody.
Wow. Okay. Okay. But yeah, and still, I have to give you your flowers. That really sounds amazing. I wanted to ask you a little bit, I guess, about some of the courses that you teach. Critical race, feminism, and women, and the law stories. Is that a course that you currently teach?
No, those are courses, seminars that I've taught in the past, and they
Oh,
were
okay.
both wonderful. The Women in the Law Stories is a book that a friend of mine published, and I had a chapter in it. So I taught a course where we could go through all of the women in the law stories and various Supreme Court decisions that were especially relevant to the lives of women, or where people didn't realize that they had such relevancy to the lives of women. So I'm very proud of that contribution. And critical race feminism is in a long line of critical theories that were developed in the 80s, roughly speaking. And it's funny, in recent times, there's been some criticism of critical race theory and critical anything, primarily by the Trump administration, I think. And so I've spoken a few times in various forums about what it is. And the first thing when you see critical is that it's critical thinking, whether it's critical legal studies, critical race theory, critical race feminism, critical feminist theory. The first thing that anyone should hear, and if you are a parent or a teacher, you should understand that the main thing that you're getting out of critical anything is the ability to think critically. That means the ability to think for yourself. And everyone should want that. Everyone should want the ability to, in an informed manner, be able to think through what's really happening and be intelligent about it. And so, yes, I teach those courses and I write from those disciplines.
Okay, okay. Now I wanted to ask you this. I was curious about it because I guess things are constantly changing politically and going forward. Like you say, for women or even minorities, and if they're in situations where they're not getting opportunities, or say if they're in the workplace, they've been at this place for 10 years or 15 years, and they feel like they're getting overlooked, or they may not get that position that they applied for, or that multiple times, but then they see opportunities being presented to, maybe a male or maybe, a non minority person. How should they go about, trying to resolve these situations? Should they just go directly into pursuing a lawyer, or is it things that they can do, within that institution to try to, get some, I guess, rectification?
Wow. So you've asked an incredibly complex question in a hypothetical manner. So I'm going to try to spin out a few different scenarios. The first thing I would say to someone in that situation, without more details, is never give up. That's the first thing. Don't give up. And partly that's because of the complexity of life and the various situations that we're talking about. So when you say maybe somebody else got it, well, why did they get it? Is it in a scenario where they were deserving or undeserving? Was it about time? Was it about what were the reasons that maybe you know, maybe you don't know what the full set of circumstances are, which is why the first thing I say is don't give up. Do things that you need to do to make sure you're prepared to be in the position and in the place that you want to be in. Make sure that you are complete in those ways first. The second thing I would say, again, not knowing fully the details maybe someone is experiencing, is to speak up, to learn as much as you can about the situation and what it takes to be where you want to be, and keep hammering away. And yeah, speak up, which I know when I say that, and when you hear that, that's much easier to say than to do. It's not always easy to speak up. And so I'm asking a lot when I say that. Speak up. Sometimes that means you don't speak up the first time and you go back and you think, okay, what could I have done? What should I have said? And then maybe the second time you do speak up. Or maybe you speak up to the wrong person and you need to find the right person to go speak to. So I go back to my first precept, which is don't give up. Keep going. Keep hammering away to get what you want, what you deserve, what your heart's desire is, whether that's additional preparation or continuing to say, here's what I deserve, here's what I need, and so on. I also mentioned understand the full landscape. Who are the right people to talk to? What are the things that you need to do to prepare to be in the place that you want to be? When you do that research, you not only understand how you need to be prepared, but you usually also discover what recourse you have when you don't get what you think you deserve. It's always wise to go internally first. See if you can resolve it inside. Because if you're in a situation that is severe enough that you feel like you need to talk to an attorney and sue, the first thing they're going to ask you is, well, how did you try to resolve it? And if you go to court, lay people who are not in your circumstances, they want to know, what did you do to try to resolve it before you came to court? So it's worth doing that, both for your own sake, to make sure you're prepared, that you've got everything that you need to do that the institution expects. And then along the way, you learn about what are the means to resolve it internally. And yeah, if you don't get resolution, continue to move forward. Maybe you hire an attorney. Maybe you keep going. That too. So this is another something. I think that it's difficult sometimes for people to speak up. It's also difficult sometimes for people to push their rights forward and actually speak to an attorney, to actually go to court. Those are not easy things to do. Sometimes they're necessary, and different people have different personalities. So some people are ready to sue the very second they get out of bed, but other people are like, no, not quite ready to yet. So you have to self-assess your own personality, understand what you're willing to tolerate. But I still come back to my first precept: don't give up. Keep going forward. Keep doing what you know you need to do, and find out the things that you can request or require others within your institution to do. I hope that was helpful.
Wow, yes, definitely. I appreciate you speaking on that. Yeah, you made it very clear. Okay, now I wanted to ask you about you advocate for survivors of domestic abuse, and if you could just speak about that. And also, I would like to know, have you seen significant changes? Post pandemic, are things getting better? Are they getting worse, or is it kind of like staying the same?
Is the post-pandemic question, is that related to the domestic violence, or is that a separate question?
In terms of domestic violence in America, are there more resources or ways to help or stop or prevent? I'm just asking, in general.
Yeah, I think as a general proposition, we have moved forward, whether it is regarding domestic abuse or any other form of violence in the United States. I think we're doing better jobs as people, as a civilized people, to recognize when there are situations of violence and to refuse to tolerate it. That doesn't mean it's gone away. I think we've got a long way to go. Let me first say about domestic abuse. The way to recognize domestic abuse is when it is used for control, right? Because I've had my students in my classes, whether they're domestic violence classes or family law classes, we talk about what makes a violent action abusive. And a lot of the students want to know, well, if me and my boyfriend, girlfriend slap each other all the time, and that's just how we are, that's not abusive. I said, well, that might be what you're willing to tolerate. For me, I'm not slapping anybody and I'm not accepting it if they slap me. I understand different people have been raised differently and they're accustomed to different kinds of form. And there's violence every place in our society. Look around, go to the movies, watch television, listen to the radio. Violence is everywhere, unfortunately. So what makes something a relationship one where you can say that that person is abusive to their partner? Well, everything that they do, or the vast majority of the things that they do, are designed to keep the other individual under control. Whether it's belittling them through statements, putting them in situations where they're in danger, or hitting them. And then, even more so, people don't recognize necessarily that the next step then is to apologize. So I smack you today and I say, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I really love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And now everything seems, oh, yes, he's trying to change. So I'm going to stay with him. See, he apologized. He really didn't mean to do it. Then another couple of days or weeks later, smacks you all over again. Well, that's controlling behavior because you're lulled into a false sense of security. And men are absolutely the biggest part of the solution when it comes to domestic abuse. I'm putting it in gendered terms because the vast majority of abusers are men. Anyone can be an abuser, don't get me wrong, and a man can be abused by another man or a woman. So an older person can be abused by a young person. An older person can abuse a young person. So anyone can be abused and anyone can be an abuser. But when we talk about statistics and what's been tolerated in our society over history, the vast majority of abusers are men. So we need men to say to their friends and buddies in the locker rooms and on the bars and whatnot, hey man, that's not cool. That's not good for you to abuse that woman, the person that you're with, or anybody else. I wasn't sure I was going to speak about this. I haven't had the opportunity to watch, I think it's on Cinemax or HBO. There is a video concerning Chris Brown. And I mention that because I know, what's it now been, 10 years since Rihanna and Chris Brown were together. And she claimed that he was abusive. And it was in all of the media outlets. It was on television, it was TMZ, it was radio, and everybody knew about it. And I remember this because I remember so many of the commentators mentioned that she smacked him too. And so they tried to equate the two things. And I said to people, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with them. But if he's abusive, chances are he's done it before. So now there's an entire biography, historiography of other women that he's abused. I haven't seen it yet, but that's what it's billed as. So now we can look back and say, well, gee, maybe those commentators didn't know what they were talking about because he has history. It's funny, another something I do with my students in my classes when I talk about domestic abuse. I give them 4 truisms. So the first truism is most abusers are men. Second truism, most men are not abusive. Makes you think. Third truism, most women do not go from one abusive relationship to another abusive relationship. Most abusers do. They abuse one person, then they go to another person and abuse them. And so that's something to recognize, something for people to recognize and understand. Yes, this is how things are set up in our society. And instead of blaming the victim, we could understand that violence is ever present in our society and we shouldn't tolerate it as a society because that's how people get permission. If you know that your friend is abusing someone and you're like, hey, how you doing? Instead of, why don't you stop? That's what we need from everybody. Why don't you stop? Let me help you stop. Let's find productive ways for you to exercise your anger, more productive ways for you to be in a relationship. So I've been an advocate for victims of domestic abuse. I was more directly so when I began my career. I can't say that I have been a great advocate in current days as I once was. I do teach it in my classes, and I've consulted. And across my career, yes, I have seen some changes. Some of those changes are directly related to what I had said, society not tolerating violence as much as it used to. Some of those changes are frankly related to external ideas. Like now in courtrooms or courthouses, we have metal detectors. Why do we have metal detectors? Believe you me, I wish I could say it was because of domestic abuse. It should have been because of domestic abuse. But no, it's because we have mass murders and people carrying weapons and things in public places where they shouldn't, right? It's because now we're all worried about terrorist attacks. It's funny though, if we had paid more attention to abuse of people in the home long before terrorism happened, maybe we could have stopped that form of public abuse. But we didn't. When I was a young attorney, and that was back before we had metal detectors going into courthouses, I had a client or two where there was a knife brought into court or there was a gun brought into court, and it was specifically to abuse or control that partner. Fortunately for me and for my clients, in both instances that I recall, the party was disarmed. But they had them in the courthouse because there was no metal detector. And so some changes are because of other things that we're afraid of. That is, we in society, we're far more afraid of a terrorist attack, which is far less likely than someone being abused in their home.
Wow, I really appreciate the work that you have done. Like I say, that's courageous for you to even, Oh man. Okay, now I
I
wanted
don't,
to ask. Uh,
I'm sorry, I can't claim to have such great courage, not the same kind of courage that my clients have had over time. Survivors of abuse are the ones who truly have courage.
yeah. And I don't know. It's like one of them things you don't know what to say because, like you say, a lot of men are responsible for it. So you're not in the shoes of a woman. You know what I'm saying? It just seems like it has to be terrifying to have to go through that for anybody. Like you say, anybody can be abused, but in general, our society, we know that the men are primarily the main one. So
Right. It's conditioning. It's how we raise our men in society, the expectations we have of different people in accordance with their gender, what we think of and expect from them. And that's both positive and negative, I think, or mostly negative. And I think Black men bear the brunt of a lot of that in public society. So that's another place where I think some of the violence has reduced is towards Black men in particular, Black people in general. That Black Lives Matter has done a tremendous service for us, people protesting and standing up for basic expectations. I'm a human being. Don't beat me. I'm a human being. Don't put my life in jeopardy, whether I've done something wrong or not. And so I think that's another place where we can see violence reducing. But we also understand that the place the violence comes from in the first place is stereotype, that people still cross the street when they see a Black man coming in the other direction, that our expectations of when personal harm is probable all comes from how we all have been, that is, all of us socially have been raised. All of us watch the same movies, all of us watch the same television shows. We've all been influenced in the same ways to have expectations about who gets to do what, who's entitled to do what, and who should do what. And a lot of that is changing gradually over time, but it is gradual. And those old stereotypes still linger with us.
definitely, definitely. Now I wanted to ask you. Now you currently working on a teaching guide.
Yes, that's my current writing project. I have a contract with Elgar Publishing, and I'm doing the research to write a guide, a teaching guide on how to include race in your law classes, other classes if you would like, but especially in your law classes. And my approach to it, so I've been teaching for quite a few years. And the first time you teach a class, it's not easy. And for law teachers in particular, we don't train anyone how to teach, right? But the conventional wisdom is for each course hour that you teach standing up, your preparation time is approximately 9 hours, right? So your new professor in particular is doing a lot of work behind the scenes to be able to come and stand in the classroom and guide the course in the conversations it has, the readings that are given to you, and so on and so forth. Understanding that level of work is required to prepare for any course, I am suggesting as a layer on everything that people do to prepare for their law teaching class, that they add the layer of race. So you've got to do research to teach towards. Well, do some more research to make sure you're also including racial aspects to it. When you analyze the doctrine and the case law, which is the talent, that's the thing we're trying to convey and impart to the students, how to be analytic. I'm asking for the professor, the new professor, or the older professor to also be analytic about what are the implications. How does this implicate race? How does it ignore race? How would this be different if it's implied in a racial manner? And so on and so forth. So the analytic side also is present there. And I also acknowledge, or will acknowledge in this book, the discomfort that's ever present in conversations about race. Everybody's uncomfortable when they talk about race. So I think teaching about race within the regular doctrinal menu will make it easier for people to talk about race. And that will benefit our students, that'll benefit society. Because if your student is more comfortable in talking about race, they'll do a better job when their client is of a different type of person than themselves. And that's whether it's in business or in civil rights or in housing court. Whatever you do as a lawyer, you will encounter people of difference. And the world is becoming smaller, right? Because here I am talking to you from Miami and you are in Malawi, and that is our world now. And so when businesses, multinational conglomerates do business, they have to consider people of difference. And so not only will the idea of teaching race within your courses enable your students to feel more included, enable your students to be more analytic. It will also enable your students when they graduate to do a better job, to relate to more people. And of course, my ultimate hope is that this little contribution will also enable the peoples of the world to be more civilized towards each other, to be closer to each other.
Okay, wow, that's really amazing. I look forward to that. Now is this something that you're gonna have on your website, or for the viewers, if they want to follow what you're doing, and when it is available, they can get it, or should they just Google it? What would be the best way?
Yes, of course. They can Google it. I'm in the midst of writing, so this is going to take another, I'll say on the outside, another year for me to complete this project. So, I'm doing the research. I've started the writing. I hope to have it done quickly, but writing is not a fast process for most people who are writers. Some people can just knock things out like it's nothing, really quick and easy. But no, I'm doing the research, I'm doing the real thinking, and I'm doing some writing as I move along. And so the process will take me some time to get done. So I'm very excited about it. And I think it'll be really good and valuable to people once I complete it. But by no means am I close to being done right now. It's just my latest project.
Okay, okay. Well, I appreciate you even taking the task, but like you say, taking your time and doing the research and writing it and being thorough about it, that's definitely the best route to take. So I just want to thank you so much for stopping by. A lot of the stuff you were saying, I'm still processing it. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this, and I look forward to the work that you have coming in the future.
Okay. Well, I very much enjoyed meeting you. This has been great across time zones and continents to talk with you. I wish you the best of luck. If you have any follow up questions for me, feel free. And maybe I'll see you again sometime in the future.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And let me know if you ever connect with your aunt, or if you ever go to the motherland, because that's my goal, is to live in Africa. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, but I've been in like 20 African countries. So my goal is I'm gonna live on the continent once I figure out the right place.
Well, no doubt you can do that. Where's your name hail from, Mr. Uruho? Did I say I
Oh, okay.
butcher your name? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. I do genealogy, so I do family trees and research. I'm in the history. I'm like a history buff. So
Right.
once I figured out, where my family got the name from, I wanted to change it. So Taye is like it's a word that's used throughout Africa, but in particular in Ethiopia, they speak a language called Amri, and Taye means to
Mhm.
see something, to have a vision. And Uhuru, that's
Wonderful.
a Swahili word. They use it like in Kenya, Zanzibar, and it means freedom. So my name
Right.
means he who has seen freedom. That's my legal name. I changed it. I went to court to change it.
I see. Now I understand because I assumed at first that that was the name you were given from your parents, so they must have come from Africa, but you
Mm,
changed it yourself. So, well, good for you. And what a
yeah.
great choice you made,
Right. I had to put some thought into it.
no doubt.
Okay.
So
Okay.
keep doing what you do, keep learning, and keep helping others to do the same.